Russia thought Novorossiysk was untouchable, until one night when Ukraine used $10,000 drones to collapse a $1 billion air defense shield, and then cut off the country's most valuable oil port in minutes. At exactly 2:25 a.m. on November 14, 2025 local time, the operation began with precision down to the second. A formation of 50 low-cost decoy UAVs operated by the Ukrainian Tactical Air Force crossed into the Black Sea, heading straight toward the most fortified eastern segment of Novorossiysk's defensive perimeter. This was not just any air defense belt. It was the densest anti-aircraft network anywhere in the entire Krasnodar region. For hours, the drones had flown through darkness, covering over 372 miles at low altitude. Now, only 25 miles separated them from Novorossiysk port. Most of the drones had engines running hot after more than 2 hours of continuous load. Fuel levels were dropping across nearly every drone in the formation. Several units shook slightly as low-altitude humidity rolled off the cold sea surface, affecting stability as the drones skimmed only meters above the water. Everything remained on schedule, until the first unplanned variable appeared. A Russian Navy Raptor-class patrol boat suddenly emerged from the darkness near Cape Sujuk. The crew spotted the incoming formation almost immediately. Without hesitation, they opened up with 14.5mm machine gun fire, cutting streaks across the night. The burst managed to take down only 3 or 4 drones, and only those at extremely close range. Seconds later, the boat's fire control operators responded with heavier weapons. 2 IGLAS manpads were fired in quick succession. These heat-seeking missiles were designed for helicopters, yet now they were forced to engage tiny, fast-moving, low RCS targets moving a few dozen feet above the sea. The decoy swarm reacted instantly. The formation split like a flock of birds startled by a predator. One group shot upward, another dove sharply to ride the incoming wave reflections. Others stayed on course, absorbing incoming fire long enough to force the IGLA systems to commit to poor lock angles. One IGLA lost lock entirely and detonated far from any drone. The second missile clipped the tail of one UAV, lighting it up in midair, but nothing stopped the remaining 40-plus decoys from continuing toward Novorossiysk's air defense ring. Realizing defeat was certain, the Raptor crew switched tactics. They transmitted an emergency code sequence directly to the nearby air defense command post, roughly 3 miles away. The response across southern Russia was immediate. Within seconds, the early warning grid stretching across Krasnodar, Gelendzhik, and Novorossiysk snapped into full red alert. Radar networks, including 91 N6E Big Bird, 96 L6E, and additional electro-optical stations, began pouring data into the IADS system. Multiple inbound objects, low altitude, speed between 140 and 170, possible UAV swarm. Inside the Integrated Air Defense Command Center, the on-duty lieutenant general decided without hesitation, engage all targets, destroy everything. It was exactly the Ukrainian planners' desired reaction. Seconds later, Novorossiysk's multi-layered defensive architecture came alive. S-400s, Buk M2s, Tor M2s, and Panzer S1s began firing almost simultaneously. Radar seekers activated, locking onto the tiny signatures rushing through the airspace. For several minutes, the eastern Black Sea resembled a battlefield light show, SAM plumes streaking upward, autocannon tracers carving arcs through the sky, and mid-air fireballs where drones were hit. On the Russian side, operators celebrated their successful intercepts. But they didn't know the truth. Hundreds of miles away, inside a bunker in Mykolaiv Oblast, Ukrainian operators watched the intercept patterns update their displays in real time. Because what Russia had just destroyed were cheap composite decoys, many built from 3D printed frames or repurposed commercial drone bodies costing under $10,000 each. They weren't meant to destroy anything. They were meant to force Russia to reveal everything. Radar frequencies, engagement orders, missile launch patterns, and sector-by-sector radar blind spots were all now exposed and mapped. Within seconds, the Ukrainian command uploaded a newly generated coordinate package to the 12 Libid Luti strike UAVs flying 9 miles behind the decoys. These strike drones had launched only 20 minutes after the decoy swarm. Upon receiving the updated grid, all 12 Luti UAVs instantly shifted formation. 4 pushed through the western corridor, 5 hugged the northern shoreline of Semmes Bay. The remaining 3 entered a narrow radar gap only 130 to 200 feet wide, a seam so tight it only existed on paper, and Russian technicians assumed no aircraft could exploit it. Every N. 19.6 Luti measured under 10 feet long and used radar-absorbent composite materials. Their radar cross-section fell below 0.05 square meters, smaller than a seabird. Each carried a HI penetrator incendiary warhead containing nearly 176 pounds of explosives. By 3:10 a.m., all 12 drones began their final attack runs. Russian duty officers were still drafting their victory reports. The first 2 Luti drones hit the 96 L6E radar station at the Abrau-Giurso AD cluster, a $25 million high-altitude early warning radar serving the S-400 network. Drone 1 collided with a rotating antenna mast, shattering the horizontal scanning mechanism. Drone 2 hit the power cabin, setting off an internal explosion that disabled control systems. Within seconds, the radar screen went completely dark. Immediately afterward, 3 more Luti UAVs moved on the 92 N6 Gravestone fire control radar at Gelendzhik, the brain that guided the S-400's long-range 48 N6 DM missiles. Drone 4 hit the main control cabin. Drone 5 smashed the phased array antenna joint, snapping its rotation axis. Drone 6 detonated beside the electro-optical transmission hub, severing its data pipeline. Within 40 seconds, the 2 core radars of the S-400 network were gone. The entire Novorossiysk region, once believed to be protected by an impenetrable sky dome, was effectively blind. The remaining 7 Luti drones were immediately retasked. 3 struck S-400 launchers at Abrau-Giurso. 2 hit control cabins. 1 destroyed an empty canister rack. Another launcher at Gelendzhik was hit from the seaward direction, breaking its elevation frame. Ukrainian reports confirmed 4 launchers were heavily damaged. 2 core radars were destroyed or disabled. Long-range coverage fully paralyzed. Buk and Tor systems still existed, but without long-range radar, they were merely close-range point defenses. The corridor to Novorossiysk was finally open. From a concealed site in Mykolaiv Oblast, the actual strike weapons were prepared. 3 long-range upgraded Neptune cruise missiles. For 2 years, Ukrainian engineers had reworked Neptune, transforming it from a coastal anti-ship missile into a long-range land attack platform capable of reaching Novorossiysk from deep inside Ukraine. Upgrades included extended range and hardened INS against GNSS jamming, advanced sea-skimming algorithms, low-altitude terrain masking, full compatibility with preloaded satellite and UAV mapping. Once confirmation came, S-400 cluster blind, the launch crew transmitted the final command: fire! All 3 missiles launched 10 seconds apart, each carrying a 150-kilogram penetrator warhead designed for hardened industrial targets. They descended into low-altitude cruise, flying only 16 to 23 feet above water, rendering them invisible to most Russian radars. As they approached within 19 miles of the coast, their onboard seekers activated, scanning for radar reflections. The structures of the Shashkari's oil terminal appeared as strong, unmistakable signatures. Terrain matching activated. Imagery mapped directly to preloaded datasets collected earlier. Targets confirmed. Ukraine was about to strike directly at the most critical node in Russia's oil export chain, the final loading choke point before crude left for world markets. At 3:40 a.m., the Russian air defense network finally understood what had happened. Tor and Pantsir crews scrambled frantically. A Pantsir S-1 near the port fired a volley of 57 E-6E missiles in emergency mode, while 2 Tor M2 units launched 4 short-range interceptors. 6 intercept missiles in total. But it was far too late. Neptune was flying at 16 feet, lower than the intercept envelope could stabilize. All 6 Russian missiles detonated off course. And all 3 Neptunes stayed locked on target. At 3:45 a.m., Neptune 1 hit the central manifold platform, the convergence point for every pipeline feeding the loading piers. Internal valves ruptured instantly. crude oil burst out under high pressure, igniting as a massive firestorm that cast red light across the water. Seconds later, Neptune 2 hit the eastern loading pier where the tanker Arland of Sierra Leone was moored mid-loading. The warhead detonated at the base of the pump tower. The ship ignited internally, compartments ruptured outward, and oil slicks along the pier burst into massive sheets of flame. A foreign vessel burning inside a Russian port introduced diplomatic, insurance, and market complications far beyond the immediate battlefield effect. Before systems could respond, Neptune 3 hit the technical control hub, the nerve center that controlled electrical power, pressure, and fire suppression across the entire terminal. The explosion ripped through control stations and severed emergency management networks. Shishkaris lost the ability to fight fires, regulate pressure, or redirect flow. In under 90 seconds, 3 missiles had punctured crude storage tanks, destroyed the manifold sector, disabled pump command stations, crippled the pressure control center, paralyzed the technical control hub. Novorossiysk's financial artery, worth an estimated $140 to $180 million per day, was cut instantly. The Caspian Pipeline Consortium, CPC, was forced to shut valves along the entire route, halting flows from Kazakhstan and the Caspian region. All tankers in Semis Bay were ordered to vacate their berths and anchor offshore. Black Sea oil exports dropped to zero for at least 12 to 24 hours, potentially longer if suppression systems failed to restart. This wasn't just a port strike, but it was a direct blow to the structure supporting Russia's energy export system, the same financial engine funding the war across every front. Global markets reacted immediately. Insurance premiums for tankers entering the Black Sea jumped 15 to 25% in the first 6 hours. Brent crude prices rose 2%. Not because supply collapsed, but because confidence in Russia's ability to protect strategic rear area infrastructure had fractured. With one coordinated strike package, a decoy swarm, a stealth penetration, and 3 cruise missiles, Ukraine delivered a strategic message. If Russia cannot defend its most important port, then nowhere in its rear area is safe. Novorossiysk, once considered untouchable, fell in under 4 hours to a force of small drones, mid-range UAVs, and 3 upgraded cruise missiles. And on the morning of November 14th, 2025, the Kremlin woke up to a new reality. Ukraine can now hit the financial heart of Russia's war machine, and Russia has no guaranteed way to stop it.